Hello, and welcome back to the Book Marketing Tips and Author Success Podcast. This is Penny Sansevieri.
And Amy Cornell.
And this is another Amazon news, Amazon update. It feels like we haven't done one of these in a while. There was a time when we were doing them like every week. This is kind of a weird thing. I mean, and by weird, I mean, it's Amazon weird. There are different levels of weird when it comes to Amazon. Amazon is no longer allowing URLs, so website addresses, related to Author Central specifically, and anything that appears on your Amazon retail page, which is really makes me very mad. Like, I don't understand why. I could really go down the rabbit hole on this, but I don't understand why Amazon has to make it so difficult for authors, because I see so much crazy stuff on product pages that I'm like, how is that allowed? And then yet authors like, oh, you can't put your website address on. It's like, what?
I know. It's really frustrating. And Amazon is probably one of the most technologically advanced companies, but at the same time can be so archaic too. And we never know which way it's going to land, you know, with some of this stuff. Yeah. So it's just really a head slammer.
Yeah, it's absolutely a head slammer. And the part of the reason that this conversation even came up is because Amy said to me, Amy's always looking at all the things like, should we update this? Should we update that? And then she said, would you mind if I updated your Author Central page, your bio, and what appears on the Author Central page, et cetera? And I said, no, that's great. Go ahead. And then she updated my bio. Y'all have to go take a look at it, because it's very pizzazzy. Like, she added a lot of really cool stuff to it. So I was very excited about that. But I think, just as a reminder, as part of this podcast, go in and update your bios. Like, you've won awards, or you've done new things, or you could add more pizzazz to it, like Amy did with mine, which was amazing. You could really go in and have some, add some extras to your bio to enhance it, and, maybe a new degree that you got, or whatever has been, new books that you published, whatever. Super important. And then actually, I got the notice from Amazon with like, oh, we're no longer allowing URLs. And Amy, you figured out a workaround for that, right? So that we can, because we still added our URL to my bio.
Yes.
Workaround.
Exactly. And this goes back to Amazon sometimes is making knee-jerk changes, and on top of all the things, and other times it's slower to come around, because I believe this was an issue a handful of years ago, Penny, but the workaround at that point was just not using the HTTP or the www, because that's all the Amazon system could catch, So you could simplify your bio. So we were able to use amarketingexpert.com, and that was totally fine. But now just the system has been updated. So now it scans for the .com even. So that was no longer allowed. So when we went to update Penny's bio, and of course, again, this just drives me nuts. It just was like error. So I'm like, this is some BS. Like, what is this error? It wouldn't even tell me. And then thankfully, we got a ticket going, and Penny got the answers. So we're like, all right. So I wanted to test something. And for what it's worth, I tested this on the About the Author section of Author Central. So not Penny's official bio, but on every single book page, you can do something even different from your bio. Like, you could do an alternate bio or an add-on to your bio. So we talk about bios all the time, Penny, about how it should stay pretty relevant to who your readers are, what you write about, your genre, your topic, things like that. But it's kind of cool that you can have your standard bio on Author Central, but then on every retail page, you can go into something more specific about you as an author for that particular book. And I thought, ooh, what a great place to test to see if this workaround will work. And so I did. And basically, and y'all have probably seen this before if you're on, there's a lot of discussions online and other platforms that don't allow for email addresses and things like that, but people always find workarounds. And that's what I stole this from. So you can actually still include your URL, but you just have to spell out .com. So quite literally, for us, we did amarketingexpert.com. And for the most part, 99.9% of people that will read that will understand what's going on. I mean, for the 1% that doesn't, hopefully they'll just search for us and still find us anyway. But it was so great because we were able to keep the website on there, but in a way that Amazon couldn't just scan it and reject Penny's new bio. So we were really excited about that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really, and you know, it's funny because I was talking to somebody, I don't know, I think it was a week ago, and is so, Amazon is sometimes so archaic. It's just, there's so much chaos on that website. This is such a weird thing that they're not allowing you know, traditional URLs anymore. It's like you can't click through the URL anyway to go to somebody's site. It's not like you're losing people, and you notice the dot, but you don't notice the DOT spelled out. You know what I mean?
I know. It's ridiculous.
It's so crazy. But and now the other thing, so we have always talked about um that it's really good to have your keywords in your book description, in your title, in your subtitle, if you possibly can. Those are things that are always recommended. But now, apparently, the Amazon search results are really skewed to if the keywords aren't in the subtitle, the book just doesn't show up. And Amy, you also discovered this. Do you think, because this is something that we may have to deep dive in even further and maybe even do some testing on. So you discovered that the keywords in the subtitle help the visibility in Amazon search, right? So on the search page. Um, but but books that don't have keywords in the title or subtitle just don't show up now. Like they just
They're not going to be given priority. So
okay.
yeah, so basically Amazon is definitely favoring, and this isn't as far as I can tell, because I did some different searches and I do a lot of searching. This is also why Amy will never be able to review a book on Amazon, because Amazon already thinks that I'm such a weirdo and I spend too much time on there. So sorry in advance to anybody that, but truly I have kept an eye on this, and I'm definitely seeing it more so for genre fiction. And for genre fiction, Amazon is giving preference to it when it comes to search results to books that are using these really strong genre like terms in their subtitle. It often doesn't occur in the title, but the subtitle. And like Penny said, we've talked about this before, getting really creative and using descriptive subtitles, especially if you self-publish and you can kind of play with these options and test different things. But so I pulled some examples. So like friends to lovers romance, mafia thrillers, paranormal fantasy, which is a big one, techno thriller, science fiction. All of those are examples of if a book has those terms in the subtitle, they are going to get priority listing on search results. So they are much more likely to show up on page 1 or 2 of a search result. So your book is not lost forever if you don't have these. I'm just saying it's going to be very hard to get your book to show up on page 1 or even page 2 if you're not using these terms in the subtitle. And unfortunately, we don't know why Amazon is doing that. But like Penny said, I've been noticing it more and more. We've noticed this. We have mentioned this before a long time ago because, things like this do pop up, and we kind of like to, we have the philosophy of we see something, we say something to y'all. If we see it on Amazon, we like to share it. And we do make a point to try to revisit these if we see it actually stick, because Amazon does test a lot of things with the algorithm that may not last for very long. They could be here for a week or two and then we never see it pop up again. But this is something that is definitely sticking in the system.
Yeah, and it's and it doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't have your keywords on the back end, because very certain that this all goes hand in hand with the Amazon um with the Amazon algorithm. But it's a very, what feels like is happening to me is that the Amazon algorithm, because we've seen this, and I don't want to get too far into the nerd sphere because I can very easily, as you know. But we've talked about this, and we talked about this on the SEO show that we did. on the website show that we did a couple of weeks ago. It feels to me like Amazon is really adapting their algorithm more and more like Google.
Mm-hmm.
Because with Google, we know that like you have to have like page titles and keywords on your page and that kind of
Yep.
stuff. And we've always talked about the similarities between Amazon and Google in terms of how their algorithm works, which again makes sense. Jeff Bezos was an early investor in Google. I'm sure he is. I'm sure he's like friends in high places. I'm sure the algorithm is secret to everybody but them. But that's what this feels like. Like this is getting so much more Google-esque
Mm-hmm.
than it ever has been, right?
Right. Right. You have to be doing like there's now a checklist. They don't want to tell us exactly what it is, but you better be doing it, right?
Oh my gosh, right? This secret checklist that Amazon has. They're like, okay, we have a checklist. Can I have the checklist? No.
No, you need to figure it out. Listen to Penny and Amy.
I mean, it makes me kind of crazy. So I think that unfortunately, I mean, if your book doesn't have a subtitle, and I've said this before, if your book does not have a subtitle, go in and add the subtitle, right? If the book cover has a subtitle on it, you can't really, there's nothing you can do about, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Other than doing your research, doing your due diligence before you finalize the subtitle that's going to be on the book cover.
Mm-hmm.
But if your book does not have if your book cover does not have a subtitle on it, I mean, go crazy, right? And
Yeah.
and you
I,
can go into the back end of Amazon also and update if your book is published on via KDP, and go in there and update your subtitle, which actually, I mean, look, as much as we talk about how Amazon optimization strategies are not set it and forget it, is not a bad idea.
no, I love the idea of testing and playing with the subtitle that so you can respond to what's resonating with readers,
Mhm.
in the moment. And I don't mean in the moment like this week, like don't drive yourself nuts, changing your subtitle all the time. But there are definitely shifts, for in genres. And it's great to be able to kind of tap into those creatively with your subtitle. And, it's worth doing. I mean, we talk about doing market research all the time. This is definitely if you have an upcoming book, whether it's your first book or your 10th book, but if you are writing a genre fiction, it definitely I recommend doing some market research to see if this applies to you. So search for some of these kind of broader, very on the nose. We're not talking, real long tail keywords like we've talked about before. We're talking about, like I said, paranormal fantasy. That's a pretty on the nose, broad term. But so these kind of broader terms, do some searching on Amazon for these. And Penny talks about doing keyword research in, her Amazon book. So I'm sure most of you have actually read it, but if not, I'm doing a shameless plug. Get the Amazon author formula because you'll understand more about what we're saying when we say do these keyword, do some of these searches and pay attention to see if this applies to the book that you're writing because you can get ahead of this if you're doing, you know what I mean? If you do the
Yeah.
research and notice that like, oh, like I see this happening. This is happening for books like mine. I want to get ahead of this and be sure I'm using at least one of these big, on the nose terms for my genre in a creative subtitle when I load that book up there.
Well, and I think that the other piece of this too is that, if you always have to be your own best advocate, but if you're working with a publisher, you are going to have to push them to make sure that the subtitle gets added and gets added properly, right?
Yep.
Because this is a really big piece for authors that are, you know, wondering why they don't have as the kind of visibility on Amazon that they want to. I'd be really curious. I really I you know I wonder if we have a book that we can see, like, if there are no keywords on the back end of Amazon, but there are keywords in the subtitle, like, is it still going to show up? Not because I'm going to recommend that strategy necessarily, but because I would be so curious to see how really ridiculous the Amazon algorithm. I
Right.
mean,
Yes. Like how much are they leaning into this? Like,
yes, exactly.
Yeah, I would be too. Like again, the idea of actually doing that terrifies me, but like
Yeah.
so I'm with you, but at the same time it's like I would love to see if Amazon is favoring that so much that it's even trumping, metadata. That would be wild. I hope that's not the case.
Well, I hope that's not the case either, but I still say that, this is going to be one of the tools in your toolkit. Not necessarily, don't lean into this just exclusively. I mean, still like keywords in your description and keywords on the back end and keywords everywhere. But
Hmm.
I bet you, because Amazon has been testing, and I saw it, and I meant to get a screenshot for you, and then the next time I searched it, it was gone. Amazon has been testing their Amazon ads on the Google platform. So you will have the option at some point. I don't know if it's going to be this year, but you will have the option at some point to advertise on Google as well as on Amazon, which personally, once that
Gosh.
launches, we could do a whole show on that, because I'm not a fan. But I have to wonder if their algorithm changes have anything to do with that. I don't know. Maybe I'm reaching, right? But
No, but yeah, wow. That'd be a great way to make money though. I can only imagine how expensive those ads
well,
are.
see, that's the problem, right? Is that is, I mean, it's going to seem really enticing to read to authors like, oh, I can advertise on Google. And when I'm on a consultation, and this is not like, dear Google, please don't like delist our site. Please don't let this impact our site. But I'm telling you right now, I am not a fan of Google advertising for books. Full stop. I'm just not. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
So I will be very, very curious to see what as Amazon rolls this out, as they're testing it. But definitely, I mean, their algorithm changes. We are here to keep on top of that because we are huge nerds, and
Hmm.
we're obsessed with Amazon, which is weird. But um, all right. Well, listen, thank you so much for tuning in. We love, by the way, we're doing a little bit of a tour for our podcast, and we have some influencers that have been sharing it with their followers and stuff. So if you are new to the show, thank you so much for listening. Be sure to go back through some of our older episodes. We've been doing this for 5 years, so we have a lot of episodes. Share the show with somebody who you think could benefit from it, and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.